DK Metcalf is touchdown dependent, and if you take him as wide receiver 5, you're taking a massive risk. Let me explain why. All right, so last year, DK had pretty good numbers, to be honest with you. He played all 16 games, a total of 129 targets, 83 receptions, 1,303 yards with 10 touchdowns. Pretty good. So why wouldn't he be able to repeat, or if not, do better this year? Well, there were really two different seasons that DK had last year, the first 8 games and the last 8 games. Let's compare those two because the second half was super pedestrian. The first 8 were amazing. He had 8 touchdowns in those 8 games, and in 7 of them, he had 90 or more yards. He averaged 8.5 targets. That would have ranked 12th in the league, 5.4 receptions, 24th in the league, 98.5 yards per game. That would have been first, better than any other wide receiver. An average of 1 touchdown per game that ties him for second with Tyreek Hill, a 63% catch percentage. That's only 60th, but with such a high yards per reception number of 18.3 in the league, that's 5th of all wide receivers. It's understandable why that catch percentage is so low. But all of this together was 17.8 half PPR points per game in the first half of the year. That would have been second among all wide receivers. And a 16-game pace is pretty astounding. 136 targets for 86 receptions, 1,576 yards, and 16 touchdowns, a total of 297 half PPR points in 16 games. However, the final 8 games of last year were so much different. Only 2 touchdowns in those 8 games. So his fantasy points weren't getting that boost on a weekly basis. And only one of those 8 games, he finished with 90 or more yards. So on a per game basis, he had 7.6 targets. Not a huge drop from 8.5, but still a decent drop. 26th in the league. 5 receptions per game. So again, from 24th to 28th, not that big of a drop. But here's where things get different. Only 64.4 yards per game. And that would have ranked 28th, not first. So that floor took a massive hit, and then those extra touchdowns just disappeared. And that's where his value cratered. Only 0.25 touchdowns per game, 57th in the league. The catch percentage actually went up, believe it or not, to 65.6%. That would have ranked 52nd, better than his previous 60th, the first half. However, the yards per reception really cratered. It was then 12.9 yards per reception, 46th in the league, as opposed to his 5th best mark of 18.3, and a big drop in points. Before, he was averaging 17.8 half PPR points per game, and in the second half he averaged 10.8 half PPR points per game. So it dropped from second in the league down to 37th among all wide receivers. A 16-game pace of 122 targets, 80 receptions, 1,030 yards, and 4 touchdowns on the season for 167 half PPR points. So there's a massive disparity in DK's ceiling of 300 yards and his floor of 170. So there's a really high risk, high reward variance when it comes to DK. It's very much a boom or bust type of week. And what we can gauge from those numbers is that it's a 50-50 shot either way, basically. He's a little bit hard to trust, but obviously his upside is as high as Tyreek Hill's, wide receiver 1 any possible week. So because of this upside, I'm unwilling to drop him further than 10th. And as much as I want DK on my team, it's unlikely that I'll draft DK on any of my fantasy teams this year, unless it's in like an auction league where I can get him at a slightly discounted price. But if I'm drafting 18th overall, I would rather take an elite tight end or probably another running back over him. I also like some of the wide receivers going after him a lot more.